The 9 New Hampshire RPCs comprise an entity known as the Granite State Future, of which the National Regional Planning Commission is the lead RPC. On February 1st, 2012, Carrie Deers, the Executive Director of the National Regional Planning Commission, signed a HUD 1044 legally binding federal document which specifically referenced identifying and overcoming barriers. Quote, "One of the steps in the visioning and planning process will be to identify existing and potential barriers to ensuring sustainable communities and to articulate the strategies these regions will use to mitigate or overcome each barrier. Anticipated barriers include New Hampshire's strong tradition of individual property rights and resultant resistance to planning and zoning." Clearly, the mission of the Granite State Future is to propagate a federal, sustainable living program, falsely putting forth propaganda that the program flows from our communities and state. Indeed, these RPCs are not advisory only, not when you have over 80 references to RPCs in our state statutes. We have removed those references to the RPCs and left the municipalities intact with the abilities to work together on any infrastructure and other state concerns. The repeal will allow communities to work through issues locally and through our state, rather than involving the federal government binding agreements, some of which hold mandated outcomes. We will have other people speak about this in depth in a presentation. Now let's look at some numbers.
The 3 minutes are up. We're going to let you finish up what you're doing and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Madam. Now let's look at some numbers. I have here in front of me a 2012 budget from 7 of the 9 New Hampshire Regional Planning Commissions. In this budget, it is clear that virtually 2/3 of total funding for these RPCs come directly from federal government, U.S. HUD, EPA, DOT agencies, as well as others. A very, very small percentage come from the participating communities' membership in the RPCs. My district's budget from the Lakes Region Planning Commission, for instance, had an $850,000 budget, with $572,000 of that budget coming directly from the feds. Now, if your salary was coming from the federal government, and the federal government was pushing RPCs to mitigate, as was in that document, private property rights, then where does the allegiance of these commissioners of the RPCs fall? Do they fall with the local taxpayer, or do they fall with the federal government? It is clear the federal government is using the RPCs throughout the country as vessels to promote sustainability and smart growth. To complete this goal, however, they need to weaken New Hampshire's private property rights, as they are considered, quote, barriers to the resultant planning and zoning. None of this is accountable to the taxpayer. RPCs are insulated from any accountability from this very legislature. If one looks at the fiscal note attached to this bill, you will see there is very little cost to the state in removing these RPCs. The 4 federally mandated required planning organizations are intact with this bill, allowing the mandated work to go forward. However, the total cost to the state is minimal with this repeal, and the layer of bureaucracy that is unaccountable to our legislator will cease to be an issue. My constituents voted me into this House to represent them here in New Hampshire. The federal government has found ways to subvert this legislature and is putting zoning and private property rights into play without their representation. They have a voice, we are their voice, and we should not allow regional planning commissions to be unaccountable to the New Hampshire taxpayers. They exert too much power in our state and need to be abolished. I truly believe the sky will not fall. There will be others that will speak to this today. By and large, these are thoughtful and dedicated citizens who have vetted this information that will come before you. Our hope is that you will take this information forth and thoughtfully ponder it. Our state is not well served by the federal shell game known as Granite State Future. And we, as elected officials, should repeal these entities known as regional planning commissions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We ask that we don't show appreciation by applause. That's generally not accepted practice in the House of Representatives. Thank you very much, Representative Cormier. Does any of the committee members have a timer that makes a noise?
Sure.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Representative? Okay, thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Representative Cordelli is another sponsor of the bill. So when you're up here speaking, if you see us going like this, okay, it means that we're trying to let you know in a polite way that we need to move on. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try not to have to make you wave your arms too much.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Glenn Cordelli, and I represent Carroll County District 4, which is Tuftonboro, Multiboro, and Sandwich. And as we all know, election season is coming up. And what fun we can look forward to in the fall. The regional planning commissioners, however, don't have that inconvenience. They do not have to run. They are unelected, but you would never know that. Let me quote from their websites. From the New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commissions. It maintains strategic partnerships with various state and federal agencies and develop planning policies, programs, and legislative positions, working on behalf of its member commissions and by extension the member cities and towns across New Hampshire. From the Nashua Regional Planning Commission, the role of the regional planning commissions in New Hampshire is advisory. The commission itself has no formal decision-making authority. Now to RSAs, specifically number 3647, which is general powers and duties. A regional planning commission powers shall be advisory and shall generally pertain to the development of the region with its jurisdiction as a whole. Nothing in this subdivision shall be deemed to reduce or limit any powers, duties, or obligations of planning boards in individual municipalities. But that does not seem to be sufficient for the commissions. You will hear other presenters, as you've already heard from the prime sponsor, talk about Granite State Future and the National Regional Planning Commission and their agreement with HUD. And you'll be hearing more about that. So let me instead direct you to the New Hampshire Regional Association Commissioners meeting of September 9th, and you have a copy of that. I quote from there. David Pierce noted that we have in the past regarding impact and fees and changing the RPC status in the RSAs to be listed as political subdivisions. Christine Frost noted that something needs to be done to allow the RPCs to carry long-term debt. Connie Poulet, the former director of the Lakes Regional Planning Commission, stated, the association has been visible in the legislative arena by taking a reactive position, but his board of directors would like to see us take a more proactive position and introduce one or two pieces of legislation each year. The meeting agreed to a list of action items, with number 1 being to be proactive and active for up to 2 pieces of legislation per year, including allowing RPCs to incur long-term debt. The regional planning commissions and their commissioners have ventured well beyond the intended purpose and powers in RSA 3647. Again, the regional planning commission's powers shall be advisory. Their actions and words have demonstrated that advice is not their game, power is their game. Advisory, just words. It is time for the legislature to reassert its vision, because the RPCs have demonstrated that they have a much different, larger vision. This legislature can do that by passing HB 1573. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. Is Senator Carson still here? I know she ducked in and then she went out.
Oh, no, Carson, no, she left and she will not be back.
She will not.
She signed in on it.
I know, she signed, and she was going to speak in opposition to the bill. I'm sorry that I just didn't catch her in time.
She set Crow down. If-
Okay, can I have Commissioner Tony Pappas, please? She's still, Commissioner Pappas. Commissioner Pappas will speak in opposition to the bill. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Tony Pappas, District 1, and I reside in Manchester. And I'm speaking in opposition, and in my humble opinion, it would be a great loss to discontinue the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission in its present form, because I think the services they offer are invaluable.
Figured out the timer.
That
That
wasn't. I'm sorry.
Planning economic development and the regional impact of local actions on the larger community are very complex matters that require expert knowledge, I think, a keen understanding of how what may appear to be small actions can often have significant and unintended consequences. Likewise, those small actions, if properly executed, can deliver great benefit both locally and across a region. So the knowledge and expertise that's available through the planning commissions to entities such as counties and municipalities, we think is invaluable to efforts to make sound decisions. Regional planning commissions save communities money by providing low-cost planning services, and many times these communities do not have the ability to employ or otherwise engage individuals with planning skills. Depriving counties and communities across the state of the Commission's resources appears to me to be short-sighted and foolish, especially since the funding from the general fund is so small. And as most of you probably know, membership dues are voluntary, and for every $1 of dues received, the commissions bring in over $8 in planning grants and services. So I urge you to please make this bill inexpedient to legislate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Pappas? Thank you. Did you want to put that into the file?
Sure.
That would be great. Yeah, you can just leave it with Representative Bickford. He's our general good guy. He will make it, hold it for you. Thank you very much.
It's on tape, right?
Representative Buchinski here. No, he said he had. I would like to call Teresa Shabbat, please. She's speaking in support.
I'm back here.
Okay.
I just wanted to, I want to reiterate what Jane Cormy said. I would just say I agree with her.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can I have all fixed here. I'm sorry, Victoria? Welcome. Victoria will speak. Nice to meet you. Victoria will speak in support.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, I'm sorry, you're right. I apologize.
Dear Chairman Porter and members of the committee, I'm a member of the Norfolk Planning Board, Commissioner on the Stratford Regional Planning Commission, and a citizen of my town, region, and state. I would like to state for the record that I'm strongly opposed to HB 1573. I could provide a long list of services that regional planning commissions provide, but I'd like to focus on one aspect of their work that is especially important to my town of Northwood and my region. As a commissioner of Stratford Regional Planning Commission, over the past few years, I've seen the increasing amount of practical information the Commission has been developing and making available for free for municipalities to use or not use as they see fit. This information is crucial for New Hampshire towns and cities to have in order to be able to solve complicated, often interrelated problems in an efficient way, given limited financial resources on all fronts. One of the reasons I'm especially excited about the Regional Master Plan, the infamous Granite State Future Project, being developed right now for our region is that there will be a vast amount of practical information contained in it, mostly in appendices. There will be no strings attached. to this information. No mandates in terms of how it is used, no repercussions for towns that choose not to use it. Chair of the Regional Master Plan Advisory Committee at Stratford, and we've discussed this issue in great detail. Information from the Water Resources chapter will hopefully spark important discussions in Northwood on issues like the declining water quality around many lakes, the changing amount of impervious cover over time in our town, and the impacts this is having on water quality and stormwater management in town. Towns like mine need to be able to make these kinds of critical connections, which in our case not only relate to health and safety, but also to our local tourism economy. I'll avoid some more examples, but I'd like to end by noting, I have to point out the politics involved here. This bill is meant to shine a harsh light on the RPCs and then destroy them. It's also an opportunity to shine a light on how wrong-headed and aggressive the anti-planning forces in New Hampshire have become. They put forth a very organized effort to undermine planning in the state. It should be noted for the record that an action I believe is related to HB 1573, a series of letters sent out this week to almost every RPC in the state requesting, under the right to know law, all the information that they have in emails, files, you name it. In the case, for most of the regional planning commissions, it's for 5 years. For Stratford, it's unlimited amounts of time. I've got lots more to say. That'll do it.
Thank you very much. You still have 30 seconds.
Okay. I work for the Office of Planning in the Municipal Assistance Division. We had 3 plans. We're totally overwhelmed by the demand, and when the regional planning commissions, they took on a lot of that burden. And as we know, OSP became OEP, less and less opportunity to do land use planning and provide guidance to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Can we get people to speak
She
out?
want to submit her testimony to them.
Ms. Parmalee, do you want to submit your testimony? Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry I don't have a microphone. I don't even believe that I can get one, but I will have, Representative Boyd, will you run in and check with Linda and see if there's any way we can get a microphone? Until then, I'm going to ask the folks that are testifying to yell. Can I have Roy Howard, please? He's in support of the bill.
That's Ray Howard.
Ray, I'm
I have
sorry.
a pretty big voice, so I'll just stand here.
No, you need to come up to the desk. That's generally the procedure. Thank you.
Want the camera on.
Just want to say I've been an active citizen in my town, and I'm on the planning board, and from what I can see over the past few years, the Regional Planning Commission has done nothing but cost us money in Alton, and people seem to forget that even though it comes from the federal government, it's still coming out of the taxpayers of the private sector, because that's where all tax money originates. This country has a $17 trillion debt, which needs to be addressed, and maybe starting on the local level might help address that. That's all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me, and have a good day.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Howard? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Can I have Rick Sawyer, who's in opposition to the bill? Do you notice I'm trying to be fair? Is he back and forth?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Good afternoon. I'm Rick Sawyer. I'm a planning director in the town of Bedford, but today I'm here on behalf of the New Hampshire Planners Association, which is a group of 200 land use planners, professional land use planners in the state. You have our written testimony for you, so I won't read the entire letter, but our complete opposition to both aspects of the bill. The second half that hasn't been discussed is really the election, the forced election of the planning boards. We really feel that that should be left up to the local communities to make that decision as it is today. Don't want to repeat too much of what you're going to hear again in a little bit and what you've already heard, but our position is that the commissions are integral in helping municipalities meet their growing needs for housing and transportation, and serve as a catalyst for developing partnerships between the federal, the state, and the local level government, as well as public and private partnerships, investments, nonprofit organizations. It's really that group that can really bring all of us smaller towns together into those larger programs. Finally, adoption of this bill would really wreak havoc on those 45 communities that don't have professional planning support. They really rely on the expertise of the planning commission. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Are there any questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Don McIsaac? Don, you have here, you say here that you're representing the town of Jaffrey. Are you representing the town, or are you a citizen of the town?
I'm a chairman of the select board in Jaffrey.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking in opposition to the bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, it says support here. I apologize.
House Bill 3645 established the RPCs in 1969. And the RPC mission statement, we're in Southwest Regional Planning Commission, to work in partnership with the 35 communities of the Southwest region to promote sound decision-making for the conservation and effective management of natural, cultural, and economic resources. RPC funding comes from many sources, including the state, like grants from the New Hampshire DOT, from the Office of Energy and Planning, from towns through a contribution, like we do in Jaffrey, from federal grants, like the EPA and HUD. Now, a couple of the areas in which the Planning Commission has helped us. First, in community development block grants. This is a program funded by HUD. The Jaffrey Mills project is a wonderful example of the effective use of a grant to provide low and moderate income housing while also providing upscale residential and commercial space. Thanks to Southwest, they helped us pull together the grant, and the Mills downtown in Jaffrey is a showplace. The Planning Commission also provides regional data and geographic information systems. These data on population, housing, employment, income, taxes, it's a constant source for developing and maintaining our master plan. And it also helps in applying for grants. Local planning assistance has been provided in our master plan preparation and will be provided this year in our master plan update. Jaffrey will rely on the Regional Planning Commission for data to update our master plan, particularly when you think of our master plan on a regional context. RPC will be a consultant for us in our master plan update. They also help us with regional transportation planning. The regional planning commissions coordinate a transportation advisory council for regional input to the New Hampshire DOT 10-year plan. The RSA revision would propose that the Governor's Council provide the first statewide review of the transportation plan as drafted by the DOT without any input from the planning commissions. Without this regional input, small towns like Jaffrey might be unable to voice their needs. A good example is Jaffrey's Route 202 roundabout project. This has a significant effect on the transportation infrastructure in our part of the state, but it's also vital to the transformation of our downtown. Since 2003, the Planning Commission has also managed a brownfields program. This is to help the municipalities understand the issues and work towards remediation of those affected properties. Jaffrey's had 3 recent cases, within the last year, where they sponsored phase 1 assessment. One of them was the Park Theater, which you might have heard about, Elite Laundry. Federal agencies, when you think about it, look towards the regional agencies, like the planning commissions, for more efficient use of their dollars. The proposed House Bill 1573 would increase the state general fund expenditures and add people. It's adding 2 people, and it's adding funds starting at about $87,000 in 2015, growing to $105,000 in 2017. The OEP doesn't even have an estimate. They said to hire 2 additional planners. DES said can't estimate it. So it seems to me that what's lacking in this proposal is what it would cost the municipalities to provide the services that you're taking away. In a sense, this is downshifting the burden down to the municipalities, and we have to find a way to make up for it. Now lastly, this proposed bill deals with planning boards. Now, right now the planning boards have an option, local municipalities have an option of whether the planning boards are elected or appointed. The proposal would mandate that all planning board members be elected. The assumption here is that there's a pool of qualified candidates in each municipality who are eager to endure the election process. That's a pretty gross assumption. My recommendation is let's let each municipality decide what's best for their future.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Everybody's got their answers to it. Thank you so much, sir. Do you want to put that in for the file or no?
I have my hand scratched.
Okay, good
I might
enough.
not be able to read it.
Good enough, thank you. Mr. Tim Carter. Meredith, who's speaking in support.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Porter and fellow committee members. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this testimony. You've heard some really interesting points already. I've got a little bit of background. I served on the planning board and zoning board in my own town for 8 years, so I know a little bit about planning. But I want you to think for a moment about what Mark Sanford, a former governor of South Carolina, Elliot Spitzer, the former New York Attorney General, Anthony Weiner, the former New York Congressman, Barney Frank, former Massachusetts Congressman, and Bill Clinton, former President of the United States, all have in common.
You're all Democrats.
I didn't think about that. I'm serious. Don't count me at 15 seconds.
I'm sorry, I'll take that 15 seconds.
Well, this is a fact. They all had sex with somebody that they shouldn't have, and bad things happen. And in fact, many of them, because of that, they're no longer in power. They've lost their power. So you need to make sure that doesn't happen to you about making bad decisions. All right, so I can submit to you, and I've got the proof right here, because I've been working on this for 2 years, that the New Hampshire Regional Planning Commissions have been undressing every day, and they slip under the silk sheets at night with their soulmate, the federal government.
Excuse me, sir, I would prefer that you keep this sexual innuendos out of your testimony.
It's done. All right, so anyway, I want to reiterate, and this is really important because I assume, because you're elected officials here in the state, that you're all New Hampshire citizens. And I want to reiterate some of the opening comments of Representative Cormier. This is a document that was written by the regional planning commissions here in the state. And it's about the Granite State Future, where they got millions of dollars from the federal government. And all I want to do is read one line to you, because this says it all. It says that the barrier, it says right here, it says the anticipated barriers to incorporate the federal planning initiative into New Hampshire include New Hampshire's strong tradition of individual property rights and the resultant resistance to zoning and planning. This was written by the RPCs. They're telling you in this document that they want to take away that statement. You don't have to be an English major to understand. The regional planning commissions want to take away your private property rights. I've got the facts all here. I don't have the time to show it to you. But the last thing I want to leave you with is just this one thing. Here's RSA 36. You guys deal with RSAs all day long. Here's what RSA 36 says with respect to what the RPCs are in power, or what they're in charge of.
Excuse me, sir, is that off?
Well, I just turned it off.
Okay.
No, it's not on.
Yeah, it is. I can hear you tapping.
No.
That's fine.
Get it closer.
I think you gotta bring it closer to your mouth.
All right, so just one sentence, and then I'll be done. It says right here, this is what the regional planning commissions are in charge of with respect to you. They're in charge of the land, they're in charge of agriculture, forestry, industry, commerce, housing, facilitation of transportation, communication, the proper and economic location of public utilities and services, the development of adequate recreational areas, the promotion of good civic design, and the wise and efficient expenditure of public funds. In other words, they're in charge of every aspect of your life and mine, and guess what? They're all unelected officials. You legislators have no say over anything that the regional planning commissions do, and don't think for a minute that you do. Thanks very much for your time.
Any questions? Are there any questions?
What's that?
You want to leave any of that?
No, but if you want to call me chairperson of the Porter Scout, I'd be more than happy to meet with any of you privately to approve all of this.
We have Tyson Miller, please, from the town of Canton.
Barry?
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure what's going on with that. Is it on?
Hello, hello, hello.
Can you hear better in the back?
Can you hear me now? Try to speak up.
Okay. Is it on?
Well, he may have switched it up. Switches up at the
On. Hello?
Now maybe too loud.
Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. My name is Tyson Miller. I'm a selectman in the town of Canterbury. I'm also on the selectman representative for the planning board. Been on the planning board for some 7 years. And I'm chairman of the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission's advisory board, not advisory board, executive commission. And much of what has been said I agree with. I'm speaking in opposition to this bill. But some of the things that have been said, I couldn't disagree with most. I am an elected official. People voted me in, and I take it very seriously. As chairman of the planning board, we spend a lot of time going over all the projects they have. I deny that we don't hope that they're insulated from accountability, because I go over all the things they do, how much they spend, how much good came out of it, and what the reactions were to the community. As far as being forcing the towns to elect members to the commission, I couldn't be against that anymore. The towns have a right now to decide if they want to appoint people or elect people. And Canterbury wants to elect people. Other towns might want to appoint them. I hate to see another mandate coming down from the state telling us now we have to elect people. And secondly, I agree with the other fellow who said that the pool of people is very small. If there's one thing we need in towns, is more people volunteering to get involved in their government. The cost to the town of Canterbury, as far as the direct dues, is $2,603. That's $1.10 each. We have no planners. We have no staff to do that kind of work. And in the past, I've relied very heavily on some of the great staff they have at the Regional Planning Commission to help us do it. Over the years, they've helped us with, now when I say help, I mean they apply technical assistance. They don't give us some kind of a written mandate from the federal government to do it, but they've helped us with broadband. They helped us meet some of the needs of the fact that we have younger people are leaving our town, and we have to rely more and more on older people because they can't afford to live in our town. We have worked on excavation regulations with them to help us protect from people that might be digging away and not putting the grass back afterwards, I guess. Aquifer protection is another area that's come in very handy that they've helped us work on. And when I say work on, they've brought us other documents that other towns have done that we pick and choose from. They helped us with the regulations involved in the master plan, but not with the ideas that we put into the master plan. They've helped us just recently with a road safety analysis of one of the corners in our town that are many accidents, and possibly working with the state. They brought the state in where we couldn't get them to come, and took a look at that intersection. They've gone into our school, and as we all know, we have somewhat of an obesity epidemic in our in the country, and been working on ways of safely getting our kids to school where they can walk. And they've come up with a lot of good ideas of how we can improve our intersection with some and ways we can possibly look for more grants to help us with the construction. And finally, they've helped us with, I'm going to be asking them for help with developments of regional impact. We have a particular project coming up of a campground that will increase the size of Canterbury by about 50%. And I know the towns of Belmont and Loudon and Gilmanton are very interested because it's on 106 and they're going to be the ones that get the calls. And well, how do we sit down and work with them to work out an equitable solution tax-wise to help support us? And they're going to give us aid in that. I think that's pretty much all I have to say right now. Except that one thing. When they come to us with ideas, and we work on them and come up with some zoning regulations or a warrant, nobody in town in Canterbury doesn't spend a lot of time looking at that. I have to go through the planning board, and I have to go through a public hearing, and then we go to the town meeting where 400 or so people sit down and give us direct feedback, and you can bet that a lot of it is about landowner rights, and I'm a landowner, and I protect my rights. However, I don't want another landowner doing something that's going to bring down the value of my property, as none of you do either. So we have to look at those things. And we have a kind of a unique way of dealing with that in our town, in that we invite people, some of the most vociferous ones about landowner rights, to be on our planning board. And once they're there for a while, it's very interesting how they come around to thinking about, you don't realize what kinds of things people try to bring in to get through in the town that would not be protecting the Canterbury way, so to speak. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to me. I'm not used to this.
Yes, Representative.
Madam Chair, how in the world do you get 400 people out of the town meeting?
Well, actually, we had 500 in the summer, and that was the whole issue regarding the sod farm in Canterbury, where we had, and this is interesting, we had a lot of land that was owned by the town and had a tremendous easement, conservation easement on it, and those people went bankrupt that were running it, and we said, well, why should the town own the property? We can keep the easement and get the property back into private hands, and we did that, and that's what brought out 500 people.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you sold popcorn too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My Representative Buczynski, oh, good you are. I was afraid you had slipped out like Senator Carson and failed in your duty. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sit on Ways and Means, and our discussions don't generally involve a number of things that were raised here, at least by the second one before me here. I just want to speak very briefly, 1 minute, to say that the experience in my home community of Hinsdale has been very positive with our Regional Planning Commission. They have been helpful to the town in a variety of ways, everything from planning in terms of zoning activities to a bridge desperately needed by our community across the Connecticut River to Vermont, and the busing issues, a whole host of different matters that frankly, if Hinsdale had to do by itself, we would have to expend a lot more local resources, raise property taxes, etc. So I want to speak as strongly as I can against eliminating the regional planning commissions. I think they've been very helpful to our local community, and I hope that you will see fit to IPL the bill. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Representative Buczynski? Thank you so much. Thank you for waiting. Jeremy Olson from Grafton. Who's in support of the bill?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I will be very brief today. I'm here representing the planning board from my town, and we are speaking in support of this bill. We voted to endorse the bill on our January 7th meeting. And pretty much, we support both halves of the bill, and everything that's been said about the bill, I would have said has already been said, so I'm going to yield the rest of my time. I have a copy of the letter.
Okay, great, that'd be great to have. I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Did your planning board vote to be part of the regional?
Actually, I'll mention
Or
that
are you part or not part?
we withdrew from the Regional Planning Commission a few years ago, and we haven't been part of them since.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, Carol Miller from Dread, thank you for waiting. And she's in opposition to the bill. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Carol Miller. I am the Director of Broadband Technologies in the Division of Economic Development for the department.
of Resources and Economic Development. I'm here today to oppose this bill on behalf of Commissioner Jeffrey Rose and our division. Our agency strongly opposes abolishing regional planning commissions. I can agree with everyone else today on all the great points about the regional planning commissions, how they're needed in those towns, but let me relate to you how I've been working with the regional planning commissions over the last 4 years. In my world of broadband, I've had the pleasure of working with all 9 regional planning commissions as they're working on regional broadband plans that will be the basis for a statewide plan. Their work is important to our future. Broadband is important to our future, and important with regards to realizing the shortcomings, the perception, and the promoting of broadband initiatives around the state. In addition, they have coordinated other resources that help us enhance data collection efforts and public input needed to provide a regional look at broadband and needs of the community on a community-by-community basis and sector-by-sector basis. I found them to be professional. I have found them to be New Hampshire citizens. Even though federally funded, and that's not in my letter, this is now coming just from listening to other folks speak, I want to just reiterate the point that they are New Hampshire citizens. They are employed. They are part of the economic engine that drives New Hampshire. And the towns do have the ability to decide whether or not to partake membership with the regional planning commissions, and that decision should remain with them. There was one last point about federal funding. This whole idea of federal funding and conspiracy theory and the Democrats is all very new to me. I haven't had enough experience in the political arena to even comment intelligently about it, but I can tell you federal funding helped put in a cell tower in Groveton, New Hampshire, which didn't have cell service. Federal funding built almost over 800 miles of continuous fiber through all 10 counties of New Hampshire. The federal investment that New Hampshire, as a state, has not been able to do. So, whether or not it's federally funded or there's an agenda beyond, these are New Hampshire people and that are staffing and manning the RPCs, and they're going to do what's best for New Hampshire. And I'll leave it at that.
Wow, look at you. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Representative.
I don't know if it's still true, but I know about a year or two ago that we had some of the communities in Cheshire County that still have, believe it or not, 53K dial-up. And so without these regional planning groups or things like fast roads or anything, they would still be with 53K dial-up.
I would believe that back a few years ago. I think today that our southwestern corner of Cheshire County broadband is in a lot better shape today due to public and private investment from our ILECs and even a group now that's just launching called New Hampshire Fast Roads, which is an open access, non-discriminatory fiber to the home network, something new for New Hampshire. So without the RPC's data collection, we wouldn't have understood a lot where pockets were and pockets exist, and we continue to work on that even though federal funding will run out. They have used Granite State Futures to get some pointed questions about broadband out by survey through the university system of New Hampshire. What are people using broadband for? If your town would bond for broadband, would you support it? And the answers are very shocking. So I see a great future for them, and please continue to support our RPCs today and through the future, because they are New Hampshire people and they'll take care of New Hampshire.
Thank you very much. Larry Leeson, speaking in support of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to say that I am in strong support of this bill.
And in the interest of time, and so you can get home and cook supper for your husband, I would like to just submit my testimony.
Okay. Is there any main point you want to make?
No, nothing that's not already been said.
Okay, thank you so much for your
Thank you, ma'am.
consideration. Christine Walker. I write Walker. I can't believe I wrote Walker. Well, maybe you didn't. Are you
It's actually
from,
Christine Frost. I got married and I.
But it's not here. Many of us have been living.
Yeah, you left.
I don't know if Ben, sorry, Ben.
Is he
Ben
here?
left. He left.
Welcome to our community. This is for us.
Thank you. My name is Christine Frost. I'm the Executive Director of the Upper Valley Lakes Summit Regional Planning Commission in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Thank you for your time. I do not want to reiterate anything that anyone else has said. I do have a number of letters that were sent to me by communities that were unable to be here. Claremont, the town of Unity, and the town of Grantham, and then we also have Steve Schneider, who will have to leave here from Enfield. I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. When we're talking about a number of, like, how we work with the communities, some of the numbers that might be helpful to you to know is that in 2013, our Regional Planning Commission had about 16% of our budget, which was about $183,000, actually almost $184,000 last year, that was due to local contracts that we had with our municipalities. That is over and above dues. Our dues makes up about 9% of our budget. So if you put the two of those together, about 25% of our budget comes from communities hiring us to do work. We spend a significant amount of time trying to diversify where our funding sources come from. Currently, we have about 35 different sources of funding, and those include nonprofits, those include private organizations, and those also include places like homeowners associations. So yes, we rely heavily on federal dollars because those federal dollars allow us to be able to do the work that our municipalities are asking us to do. And do they come with strings attached? Absolutely. Shouldn't we be held accountable for those public dollars? We are asked to make sure that we report on things, that we are audited by the federal government, we are held accountable for the work that we do to be turned in on time, and those are the sorts of strings attached and accountability, as they should be, to those federal sources. Just really quickly, on a couple of other notes, I think it's important to know how much work we actually do for the municipalities. Last year, we actually kept track of, through a new system that we put in place, all of the hours that we spend working with municipalities. We had over 3,800 hours that our staff worked individually with municipalities in our region. And that, given how much dues we received from them, provided that service at about $28.40 an hour. We looked at those costs, and we also looked at the costs that people were investing to get work done, and the total savings of being members of the organization saved the region over $80,000. So there's a lot of other things that I could go into. I think maybe the other one thing is that we do receive $10,801 from the state of New Hampshire to do work. That's our state funding. That is less than 1% of our overall budget. So we do try to make sure that we are using those dollars efficiently. Being that it's less than 1% of our budget, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
How long have you been married?
Since August. But I find
Okay, you're still new.
How's the new house?
it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? That'd be great. Bill McNally from Wyndham. Wyndham, are you from? Representing himself, and he's in support of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Bill McNally from Wyndham. I'm representing myself. I just wanted to introduce the literature that I have gathered for you. This one here is called Granite State Future, The Real Facts. I'm going to leave that with the committee. This other brochure here is called Your Hometown and the United Nations, Agenda 21. I think you'll find this interesting, if there's any correlation between this funding and the United Nations. You may find this interesting. And don't forget that without government funding, we wouldn't have a cell tower, but then we wouldn't have 16 trillion in debt. Now, in passing, I'm going to leave this with you, because I know this is the one you're going to love the most. This is the voting record of every United States Senator and Congressman. Thank you for the chance to testify.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. McNally? I have a question, sir. I found over the course of my work here in the legislature that it's important for me to find out the funding source of the literature that I read. So when I read something on MSNBC, I'm checking to see who the sponsors are. When I hear something on Fox, I'm checking to see who the sponsors are. And I'm wondering if you can give me the funding source for those pieces of literature.
This one here was compiled by Tim Carter with some information from Ken Eyring of Windham, New Hampshire. In other words, the
Paid for it.
Oh, Camp Constitution of Ringe, New Hampshire. That's a private camp where kids go to school for 1 week to study the Constitution government. So it's Camp Constitution in Ringe, New Hampshire, July.
Do you know who funds them?
Yeah, me. Well, myself and a few others. It's all private.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael, sorry, my eyes are not going. Michael Findell from Mount Vernon. Did I get it really bad?
You got it pretty
You could have helped me. I knew you'd help me. Welcome to our committee. Welcome to our committee.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. This is the 12th year I've been a commissioner on the National Regional Planning Commission, serving as a representative to the town of Mount Vernon. I'm not being paid to travel here or during my time, so I'm here strictly as an interested citizen of the state of New Hampshire. As a selectman through much of last decade, I wanted to indicate that the regional planning commissions, Nashua particularly, since we're in that district, was instrumental with helping us with the master plan, the CIP, which are all mandated by the state for us to keep up to date every 10 years. Tax maps, we had to at one point invest in going to digital on the tax maps, and it ended up being that the NRPC offers us the best value for doing that, and we have to get them updated once a year, and it's very, very cost effective. Road surface management, they've helped us with that so that we can come up with a good comprehensive plan of when to pave and what roads to focus on, how much we should budget on. A certain amount of that comes from block grant and comes back from the state. They also help facilitate hazardous waste, and I actually represent the town on that committee too. And it's very important, as far as I'm concerned, as somebody who has been in town government, to keep the NRPC intact. And probably just as important as what I've just mentioned is the NRPC, or any RPC, helps foster good communication between the towns, cooperation and communication. And if the regional planning commissions went away, we don't have a very strong county government structure in this state, and it's something that helps bring people to the table a little bit better and prevent the disconnect. So instead of making a blanket statement that we should abolish the regional planning commissions, I think it would be a better angle if the people who were in favor of trying to abolish the power, eliminate the powers of the RPCs is to, what is it that you don't like about the RPCs? Because there's certain functions that I think are paramount and need to stay intact. Focus on those aspects and see about getting those written into the RSAs through some sort of proposal, evidently next legislative session, I would think at this point. So that was it. I just want to indicate that my experience with the RPCs and what they can do for the communities in our area.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir. Ms. Jane
they wouldn't join. If they feel there is no value, they can voluntarily leave. So with that, I would again just say we believe that regional planning commissions are an excellent value for the dollars. The business community certainly feels so, and we'd like to see them continue.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you so much for your time. Do you have anything you wanted to submit to us?
I do.
Okay, great, great. Representative Bickford is just getting a little. Why don't you come on up now then, Mr. Ehring? I'm sorry, I pronounced your name wrong. Ehring?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. There wasn't too many more gentlemen, but you're welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the time to speak. I know I only have 3 minutes. I'd just like to say that a friend of mine and I, over the past year and a half, have spent really 1,500 hours researching this. So what I'm about to tell you, I have some papers that Representative Cormier is going to pass out. What I have to tell you is just one aspect. It's the tip of the iceberg. Basically, this program usurps your authority. And I have a document that I ask you to please read. It's only 14 pages long, most of it's pictures, so it's going to be very fast reading. But it lays out, using their words, excerpts from their legally binding documentation, it lays out the scope of the program is to produce 9 regional plans and 1 statewide policy framework that will be coordinated together. Now, it's important to understand that there are strings attached with this program. This is a $100 million program. It's called the Sustainable Communities Initiative. That fact is not listed anywhere in the Granite State Future Agreement that the towns are asked to sign on, so that's not full disclosure. And there are strings attached. It says that aligned federal planning and investment resources that mirror the local and regional strategies for achieving sustainable communities. That means that the federal plans must align with the local plans, the regional plans, and the statewide plans. It's a top-down program, regardless of what the regional planning commissions tell you. It's not bottom-up and grassroots. There's a comment in the legally binding agreement that says HUD is committed to ensuring that the program results in the achievement of a strategic mission. HUD is clearly on top of this. It comes with mandatory outcomes. I can send you documentation on that if you would like. The agreement, as part of the contract agreement, says that the federal agency partners and the state agency partners will cross-integrate, okay? Cross-integrate their policies into the statewide development policy framework and then back into their respective agencies. That's a violation of our state sovereignty to allow the federal agencies to have direct input into our planning. As I go through this, there's another clause that includes pay-to-play players that also agree to submit and participate into the state policy framework and then cross-integrate those policies back into their organization. This whole plan was developed by a committee called the TOU Roundtable. It's part of the Granite State Future Program. It's mentioned in there. When I sent an email to Carrie Deers, who is the person who is literally leading, she's a top key person in New Hampshire. She's back here if you want to ask her questions. She signed the agreement with HUD. And when I asked her who was the TOU Roundtable, I'd like to see all the meeting minutes, all the committee, all the information possible. I got an email back from her saying that they did not take notes, there were no committee meetings minutes. She did send me one document, which then she said she gave to me because it was considered a governmental document. But that the committee, when it met, was an ad hoc committee, and therefore they were not legally obligated to keep records. There's an executive committee which is responsible for final decision making, so that once all of the plans are made and they are being aligned. If they don't align with the federal plans, the executive committee, it says right here, the executive committee comprising the 9 regional planning commission executive directors will serve as the overall decision-making body and then eliminating a few things and resolve differences. These people are not elected. Now, you had one person come up here who said he was a selectman or a planning board member and he's elected. Let me be clear. He was not elected to serve. Well, maybe he wasn't in town because somebody said they came up. But most of the people who are part of the regional planning commissions, on these committees, all the way up the food chain, they're not elected. They're not accountable to us, and that's a serious problem. Now, I will. One last thing, though. If you please look at the chart, because it shows that local and state officials are excluded from the process. There's little to no oversight over what the RPCs are doing. And the one document that I did get from Kerry Deers, which is in your packet, they have deemed themselves to be the keepers of the flame. They are the people who they believe should be overseeing the management of New Hampshire. They have a chart that they drew, okay? Their chart, not mine, and it has in there government entities. It does not list you. It does not list local or state elected officials. It has them in the middle, and it has pay players on the outside and all around it. It says in order to come to the table as a keeper, an organization would have to have endorsed the vision as an operating principle of its individual organization's work. Failure to perform could possibly subject to challenges by other members. Therefore, you got to. This is my insertion. In other words, you got to pay. You got to go along to get along. And it says the really big vision is for these keepers is to meet with other keepers on a regular basis to weave their silos together. Now, there's partners here that are listed. The people who participated in the TLU roundtable meeting are virtually the same people who are representing the organizations that are there together. And the Granite State Future Program, there's a quote in here I'd like you to read. It says they've stacked the deck when they take their planning and they give it to New Hampshire State. The committee that's going to recommend approval or not is represented prominently by people who are already on the Granite State Future Program. So it's not a checks and balances. I please ask you to read all the documentation. I'd be happy to follow up with any of you if you'd like. Thank you.
Thomas Mahan, from the Transit Authority. You way in the back. Thank you so much. He's in support. I mean, I'm in opposition, excuse me. I've got a lot of opposition people left. So, I'll use them up. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Thomas Mahan. I'm the chair of the New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority. This will eliminate, the bill will eliminate a fair number of people off the committee, off the board, and they're essential members to our board. We have no budget, we have no staff, so there's been a high reliance on the information that they have gathered over the years to do some of the preliminary work that we've been required to do in order to study the feasibility of returning commuter rail to the New Hampshire Capital Corridor between Boston and Concord. So that's part of it. I've been dealing with the Regional Planning Authority since 1977, when I was hired as the administrative assistant to the selectman in Pelham. And since then, I worked for 28 years with the New Hampshire Primex, one of the self-funded pools, and I was intimately involved with local governments and with government officials during that time. I retired from there in July of 2011, but like I said, I have a high involvement. I also serve on the town council in Merrimack and have been serving in appointed and elected positions in there since 1977. And so I've had some impact or have some dealings with the regional planning authorities. They did a tremendous study for us on the Route 3 corridor for traffic for future development purposes. They have provided us with advice to our town center committee on how to manage that particular aspect of it. Back in the early 80s, they conducted a series of pooled bidding processes for fuel oil, paving, and those sorts of things for member communities in the National Regional Planning area. So there's a lot of information that they have. There's a lot of information that they provide us. We only have a 4-person planning department, economic development department. Without their assistance and without their ability to contract with them for projects, we would be spending a heck of a lot more money trying to get that done and trying to manage the growth of our community. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for your testimony. Charles Young from Litchfield, he's in opposition. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. I'm here today representing the Litchfield Planning Board. Just a couple of things I'd like to bring up. In the packet, it says that the OEP will have staff to replace the people that are on the RPCs. They figured 2 people will do it. I believe it's about 80 or some odd people that are now employed by the RPCs. I can't see how they could do this efficiently. Also, I can't see at 8 o'clock at night or in the middle of a meeting, how do we pick up the phone and call one to get information and help? We need the RPCs. The other thing I'd like to speak about is the elected planning board members. Right now, with the appointed members, people that are applying for the jobs have a background and the technology to do the job. If you have it elected, you're going to get people that run on a popular vote that do not have the background to support the towns. So I urge you to please do not push this through.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you so much for your time. Robert Daniels from, he's in support of the bill. Oh,
It's not me.
oh, okay. So, we don't have to address, can you tell us what time it's from?
Alton.
Alton?
I'm a selectman and also a commissioner on the LRPC, but I'm not speaking for them today.
Okay.
I have no approval by the board or commission. These thoughts are my own. I'm concerned about the federal central funding of the LPCs and their apparent promotion of federal central control ideas from the HUD and the EPA. They are primarily funded by the federal government, and I think the federal government does have a lot of influence from them in terms of trying to convince state and local people to take on their ideas, to agree with the federal central ideas. They produce reports that are full of data. I've seen several of them. But there's little practical value that I have seen personally. The RPCs are involved in areas such as broadband, was mentioned earlier. I think the broadband business, private telecommunications companies should take the credit for all the advancements in telecommunications and not have the influence from government. I don't think that the government has a role in it. I think it's a very competitive industry, and I don't see why federal funds or any other funds are involved in trying to influence industries such as the telecommunications industry. I suggest reading some of the reports that the RPCs put out. There's some reports, I know Barnstead in 2007 did a smart growth that's available on the web that I've read. And see for yourself if they have real practical value, or whether they're just full of a lot of data about population trends, employment trends, and that sort of thing, which they spend a lot of time on it, granted, and they put a lot of effort into it. But I look at what the real practical value is to the community, especially the smaller towns. Everybody likes this concept of planning, but there's a difference between planning and central control. And I'm concerned that there's too much of central control and less planning, real practical planning. So those are my thoughts.
Joanne Duffy from Hooksit. And she's in opposition to the bill.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Joanne Duffy, and I sit here before you with 3 hats. I'm a commissioner for Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, but putting that aside, more importantly, I am the town planner for the town of Hooksett, and I'm also an elected zoning board member for the town of Goffstown. So I'd like to touch on putting all politics aside and speaking as from someone who's actually in the trenches out there in the planning field. Hooksett is a very busy community. We only have 2 staff people in our planning department, and the work that we get, or the services that we get from Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission are extremely important for our town, and we would never be able to have the time to do that work without their assistance. I'm just going to read a brief statement here. Like many small to medium-sized towns, we don't have all of the resources and the manpower that our community truly deserves. Fortunately, our designated regional planning commission does, and they do provide invaluable support and resources to our staff. They keep us abreast of trends in our region, conduct studies that influence our policy, and are a phone call away when needed. They offer expertise on nearly every subject. 20 years ago, when I started out in this profession, I would pick up the phone and call the office of, what it was known at that time as the Office of State Planning, and they would be there to offer their help. Their budgets have been slashed over the years. There's not as much services being offered to the communities, so we've more so relied the last few years on the regional planning commissions. The most recent work that Southern New Hampshire has helped us with was the hazardous mitigation plan. They just recently finished writing the economic development chapter of our master plan. They review projects of regional impact. They recently did an access management study for the Route 3A corridor. They provide us with GIS support. They provide the land use board members with training, and they also hold monthly planner roundtables, which are very helpful. Towns, as far as the elected planning boards go, I served on an elected planning board for 18 years in Goffstown. The town I work for, Hooksett, has an appointed board. I think there are plus and minuses with both. However, I think the town should be offered the opportunity to select which method they prefer, rather than making it a one-way. And I would ask that you would oppose this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Martha Spalding from Salem, she's in support of the bill.
Okay. Martha Spalding from Salem, thank you for the opportunity. Respectfully, I can't rule about slow dial-up or broadband. In fact, some of us even like that there are places in New Hampshire where it's still difficult for the NSA to surveil us. I'm not in favor of a police state. I know this doesn't apply to any of you esteemed representatives, but I would like to refer back to James Madison when he said that we cannot count on only the good being elected. He said men of factious tempers, of local prejudices, or of sinister designs may, by intrigue or by corruption or by other means, first obtain the suffrages of the people and then betray the interests of the people. I am concerned with the lack of oversight. I am concerned about local and state elected government. I believe that the powers of our elected officials, that you should derive your powers from the consent of the governed. And I am concerned with the top-down centralized authority
that's being implemented through this Granite State Future, because it bypasses our local and state elected representatives and empowers unelected federal agencies, special well-connected groups, the RPCs, into statewide, they're making statewide policy, not the people. I believe it violates the New Hampshire Constitution. My main concern is, and my main concern always has been as a lifelong resident of New Hampshire, is liberty. In order to preserve the people's liberty, elected officials derive their powers from the consent of the governed. It is inconceivable to me that the regional planning commissions are unelected. You should be aware that the people's representatives, the town selectmen, the town planners, the state representatives, the state senators, even the executive council is excluded from the Granite State Future Consortium. That includes you, ladies and gentlemen, local representatives. I am scared to death of the lack of oversight by the people's local or state representatives. The provisions of Granite State Future that bypass unelected, are made up of unelected bureaucrats and federal agencies, special well-connected groups. If the federal government places too many conditions on a federal grant, it becomes coercive. The states have no real choice but to accept the money, and that's my main concern. We will lose our sovereignty, and we will lose our liberty, and we will become slaves subject to the whims of a tyrannical authority. And these words were used by our founders. They are not to be taken lightly. When we stood up to the most powerful government in the world, the most powerful nation of the world, because of the tyrants, and man has not changed. This is who they stood up to, because they, and I just want to end by saying that the Florida courts have argued that the expansion of strings attached to federal grant money, otherwise known as the coercion doctrine, arose from the principle that the coercion doctrine arose from the principles of federalism, which we are protected under the 10th Amendment. And the United States Supreme Court said in the South Dakota case that in some circumstances the financial inducement offered by Congress might be so coercive as to pass the point at which pressure turns into compulsion. And what is happening through this the bankers are the ones that are going to win out in the issuing of bonds to secure the federal debt. And I am concerned about the enslavement of future generations, and I'm mostly concerned with liberty and that they not become slaves. We fought a civil war to end slavery. Thank you.
Steve Snyder.
He had to leave for time, but he will send his comments.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got lost in the middle. He's in opposition. Then how about Lauren Scott? She's also in opposition.
If I hadn't run out of my office so quickly, I'd have my written comments, so I apologize. My name is Laura Scott. I'm the Community Development Director for the town of Windham. I've worked there for the past almost 5 years, and I'm speaking on behalf of the town as the Community Development Director and as the unanimous vote from the 5-member Board of Selectmen from Monday. We are in opposition to this piece of legislation. The main reason being that towns and the municipalities should have the choice of whether to belong to an organization. This legislation would take away that choice. The town of Windham, as I said, I've been there for 5 years. We chose to leave the Rockingham Planning Commission and join with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. That was our choice, and it was made by an elected Board of Selectmen. It was our choice to engage in different projects over the last 5 years with the 2 different planning commissions. It was also the choice of the planning board to not take some of the recommendations that were given by the subcommittees that worked with the different planning commissions. Again, a choice that was given to us, our elected planning board. It was also the choice of the selectmen, after much debate and discussion, which was very good, to join in the Granite State Futures project. Again, a choice by the selectmen to do that. Nothing has, in the last 5 years of working in the town of Windham, has shown to me that there is no choice by the planning board, the zoning board, the selectmen, or town staff, that if something is recommended by the planning commission, that we're being forced to take it. In fact, usually it's us giving them recommendations and them listening to us and doing what we ask. I look at the planning commission as kind of an offshoot of my own staff, even though they're not housed in my department. I look at it as they work for me, they work for the town, because we are a member of their organization. I don't see a need for this legislation. I think it should be up to the individual communities on whether they want to participate, and they get to decide that annually during the town meeting process. It's the citizens who can decide whether to fund a membership or fund a special study with the planning commission. It's up to the planning boards, whether they're elected or appointed, to take the recommendations that are given for zoning changes or regulation changes. And it's the selectmen who appoint members to represent the town. Windham is well represented. We have 3 representatives and 2 alternates that attend planning commission meetings. I attend as staff to 3 commission boards and committees, and one of them is the Granite State Futures that I sit on for the town of Windham and report back to the elected and appointed boards and have provided information when asked. So I do believe that it is bottom up. I do give comments, and so far they've taken them all, so we'll see how that continues to go. But again, I feel that this legislation should not move forward. It should be left up to the individual municipalities to choose whether or not they want to be a member of this organization, and then, if so, to implement the recommendations given. So, thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Susan Olson from Warner. Support.
Welcome. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Susan Olson. I'm here in support of the bill. I appear before you today not as a recovering lobbyist, whose focus was on energy and environmental issues, particularly as they related to the impacts on New Hampshire municipalities, but I'm here as a private citizen. If the gentleman from, I believe it was Jaffrey, were here, I would correct him and tell him instead that in 1955, Chapter Law 252, an act authorizing the creation of regional planning commissions, was passed. It stated that, whereas under the provisions of the Federal Housing Act of 1954, grants in aid are available for regional municipal planning. That same year, Senator Judd Gregg's father was the governor, and he was leaving office. 14 years later, in 1969, the New Hampshire legislature enacted Chapter Law 324, amending the 1955 statute and giving the State Planning and Research Office the responsibility of delineating planning commissions for the state. That year, Governor Walter Peterson was succeeded by Governor Thompson, and a music festival was held in Woodstock. In 1981, after 2 years, 2 long years of work, RSA 672 through 678, the entire complement of planning statutes were reviewed, updated, and recodified. The study committee's report noted in a sidebar that regional planning commissions currently have financial problems. These financial problems could be mitigated by public funding through state or county sources. The statutes could mandate this expanded role for planning commissions. That year, Hugh Gallen was governor, and Iran released 52 hostages. In 2000, House Bill 1294 granted regional planning commissions the status of sovereign political subdivisions, the ability to incur debt and establish lines of credit without the statutory requirements of political subdivisions such as schools and municipalities, and required to appropriate tax dollars. The New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commissions stated that these changes were not major. They were minor housekeeping. They would minimize confusion while allowing regional planning commissions the same privileges and responsibilities as those whom we serve. In In fact, the executive director of the Southern Regional Planning Commission so stated that. In 2012, the blurb for House Bill 1561 stated that these commissions continue to flourish because they have a high rate of municipal membership and perform an invaluable service. It also stated that the bill nearly instantly does away with all regional planning commissions without providing any mechanism for existing critical functions. But unless OEP, DES, the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and the New Hampshire Association of Counties are not being truthful, the fiscal note to this year's 1573 paints a very different picture. OEP says we'd have to hire 2 additional staff, but we'll save $100,000 by not having to give out grants. DES says that because the federally mandated metropolitan planning organizations remain intact, the air quality data that they model won't be affected.
You wrap it up.
NHMA says it doesn't know how much money municipalities pay in dues, but they will save that money. OEP, DES, municipalities and counties all have their appropriations and budgets approved by the legislature who represent the taxpayers or taxpayers themselves. In closing, 12 years after the regional planning commissions were granted the status of political subdivisions, they were not made subject to RSA 32 or 3030, well known to this committee, the municipal finance and budget statutes, and the protections that those statutes afford New Hampshire taxpayers. 7 years ago, the local government center was granted the status of political subdivision. I think we all know how that has ended. Regional planning commissions are elected with no oversight by financial accountability. 59 years later, it's time for some questions and answers. I like my political subdivisions accountable. Thank you. And I have prepared testimony that I will make available.
Is it Regis Davies from Warner?
Rick Davies.
Rick, I'm sorry, Rick, my eyes are getting...
It's my writing.
Well, maybe a little.
Know what it is.
Maybe a little. I mean, he's in opposition to the bill.
Good afternoon. My name is Rick Davies. I'm from Warner. I am on the planning board, and I'm a representative to the Central Regional Planning Commission. I don't want to repeat all the testimony that's been in the past that has already occurred today in opposition to this bill. My observations in the years I've been representative to the Regional Planning Commission is that it's been very, very beneficial to the community. Many complex type of situations, they are able to assist us in our small town. We have the planner, hazard mitigation plan, projects of regional impact, any type of regulation, ordinance, complexity, they're right there to help with. Currently, they're working with us on a redo of a zoning district map, which we're trying to clarify some very complex situations that were given to us many years ago when it was originally drawn. In regards to planning board elections, I agree with previous testimonies. I'll keep myself there in opposition to it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Homer Ahern.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
And he is the supporter for that. It's okay, you have to run.
Good afternoon.
Nobody.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Homer Ahern Jr. I'm from Plymouth, New Hampshire. I've served the people of Sullivan County as a county commissioner for 2 terms back in the late 80s. Served in this august body 2003-2004 as a state rep from the Sanborn, Tilton, New Hampton area. Also served the people of Grafton County as a county commissioner, finishing up January 1st of this year. Listening to the testimony today, I'm also a member of the ZBA in Plymouth as well. Listening to the testimony today, what I find is, and I am in support of this bill.
having served in the legislature, whatever we can do to reduce the amount of regulations that's on our people, that are preventing us from having the economy, the vibrant economy that we should have. It's things like these extra layers of government that the RPCs are putting on us that make it harder for our business people, harder for our entrepreneurs to do the things that make our country great. I would hope that you would listen to the people that don't have a vested interest. A lot of people have sat at this microphone that have a vested interest in keeping these types of things going, keeping things complicated. The more regulations that there are coming down from the feds and coming down from the state, evidently is requiring us to think that we need to have more regulators over us, more layers of government over us. Let's take this opportunity to reduce the complications that keep our state entrepreneurs and business people from creating more jobs and making our state a better place to live. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question? What do you mean by RPC placing more government over us? Example.
It's one more layer of government that the people have to attend to. It's one more layer of rules and regulations and data gathering and just creating more rigmarole for our people out there. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Bill, Kashapko from Bedford. Welcome, Bill. You're in opposition to the bill. The remaining cards that I have now, sir, are in opposition.
Yes, I'm Bill Discontinues. I am a commissioner of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. I'm also a resident of Bedford. I'm here speaking basically as on both hats as like others have. I am opposed to this bill because I think it's very poorly thought out. It essentially appears to be a result of a lot of misinformation. It appears to be a result of a very powerful and organized lobby group. As a commissioner of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, I'd like to assure everybody that the commissioners, and there's a number of us, work very hard to make sure that there is no free rein or will from the executive director or any employees of the commission. They follow the instructions and the will of the commissions as a body. We in turn report back to our selectmen on a quarterly basis. We get instructions from them, the elected officials. It's not a type of organization that really lends itself to having a number of elected commissioners because it requires a great deal of time and effort. We are unpaid. We don't make millions of dollars, as somebody alleged we did in the first part. Nor does anybody that works for us make that type of money. We work very hard to get rid of these regulations that everybody complains about in business. I serve as the vice chairman of a super regional group consisting of the Central New Hampshire Planning Commission and the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And our mission is to help economic development. The number one thing that we have on this particular list is the reduction of needless regulation by both the local, state, and federal governments. That's the truth. If you want to listen to the other stuff, go ahead. But you should be opposed to this bill because it is ridiculous. Thank you.
Any questions? Rebecca Ola from the Department of Environmental Services in opposition. And I want to thank all of you who have been waiting to testify. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, my name is Rebecca Oler, representing the Department of Environmental Services. The department is firmly opposed to this bill, to the provision of this bill that would abolish the regional planning commissions. However, we take no position on whether members of the municipal planning board should be elected. I won't reiterate, you have written testimony that we provided, and I won't repeat everything that's in there, but I'll just highlight some of the many services that the regional planning commissions do in partnership with our department. We work very closely with the planning commissions in the redevelopment of brownfields. Brownfields are contaminated sites, usually in downtown areas, and in conjunction with the Environmental Protection Agency and the RPCs and DES, we've been very successful in many communities cleaning up these brownfields and allowing for redevelopment of those properties, thus improving the tax base of the communities. As was noted before, 4 of the regional planning commissions also serve as metropolitan planning organizations. And to correct a previous speaker, while our fiscal note response did say that because the bill does not eliminate the metropolitan planning organizations due to how we are required to do a fiscal note, we could not assume that the data that the metropolitan planning organizations provide to do air quality assessments of regional transportation plans would go away. However, it should be noted that the metropolitan planning organizations are staffed by the RPCs, and so at the very least there would be a huge shakeup in providing the data that is required by the Federal Highway Administration and the Environmental Protection Agency under the Clean Air Act for demonstrating the air quality impacts of regional transportation plans. Some of the other work that we do very closely with the regional planning commissions, and it was mentioned before, is the household hazardous waste collection. It allows for, we can't afford to do hazardous waste collections in every single community, every single year, and through the regional planning commissions, we move that around. As a final point, I would just say that on two major fronts, it's really important to be working regionally. Transportation planning, because roadways do not stop at Bridgetown border, and flood mitigation, flood hazard mitigation, which we also do in conjunction with the RPCs, because those rivers do not stop at the town border. Those types of planning efforts must be done on a regional basis, and the regional planning commissions provide a lot of expertise and a lot of experience to help with that regional planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Roberts.
In Keene, we had an old factory, went out of business. The city had to take it over for taxes because no one wanted to buy it because it was hazardous. And it was a brownfield. Then we were able to get brownfield money, over $200,000 to clean it up. Then through Southwest Regional, we were able to build 24 units of workforce housing on that. And there's no way in the world that we could have done that without the regional planning. Does that happen quite often around the state? Because we in Keene, we have enough, we're big enough and we have enough money to do it if we were really forceful, but I don't understand how the small communities could handle something, an old shoe mill or an old mill that went out of business and all the soil is contaminated.
Yes, thank you for that question. While I don't work in that program, so I can't give specific numbers, that is a very common scenario. We work all over the state. Many of the old mill towns are smaller towns, and they do not have the kind of resources that a city like Keene would have. We have numerous examples of successful partnerships with the communities with the help of the regional planning commission in bringing those brownfields back to productive use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Warren Hutchins. Excuse me. Legal opposition. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Warren Hutchins. I'm a resident of the city of Laconia, and I serve the city as chairman of the planning board. I say the word city because under the RSA's, cities, the 13 cities in the states, don't elect, they appoint, and this works very well for Laconia. Our councilors are elected, and they advertise for all boards and commissions, not just the planning boards. And we, the people that have an interest, turn in an application, our resumes, we're interviewed by the council, we're vetted, and then we're appointed for a 3-year term, and it goes all over again. Our council maintains control over the qualifications of the individuals on all boards and commissions. We like that, it works very well for us. Secondly, the Laconia is the largest paying dues member of the Lakes Region Planning Commission, and we think it's an outstanding value. We have, fortunately, a very professional and fully staffed planning department. The Lakes Region Planning Commission assists us tremendously in projects. One specifically for the state school property, the former prison property, that is under discussion now here in the legislature about who owns and who's going to buy it. The Lakes Region Planning Commission obtained funding for that site for the brownfield assessment, helping the state leaders and the city leaders decide what's the best use for it. On a second perspective, I serve on the Lakes Region Planning Committee, the Executive Committee, and am the current Vice Chairman. And currently, all 30 members of the Lakes Region Planning Commission are dues-paying members. There's discussions within their towns, and right now they all pay their dues. This includes Alton, Barnstead, and Gilmington, the district that the sponsor of this bill represents. In fact, a selectman from Barnstead is on our TAC committee, and a former moderator of Gilmington is the current chairman of the Lakes Region Planning Commission. We feel that the member community should decide for themselves whether they want to have elected or appointed individuals. It's a community-based decision, and we would like to keep it that way. And I also have a letter here from the Lakes Region Planning Commission, the Executive Committee of all 30 towns, which are asking you to ITL this very poorly thought out bill. The Granite State Future Program is just one program of the planning commissions. And as you all know, master plans within towns and cities do not dictate regulations. The elected council or selectmen do. And the same way with the Granite State Future. There's no dictating to anyone from that program. So we, both from the Lakes Region Planning Commission and from the City of Laconia, please, as you did 2 years ago, please ITL this bill. Thank you.
You did it too, we had 23 seconds. Edwin Smith from Hinsdale, in opposition.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Edwin Smith. I live in Hinsdale. I'm representing myself today. But as a bit of background, I served in the legislature for 7 terms. 3 of those terms, I was chairman of the Public Works and Highways Committee, and I was on the same committee all except for 1 term while I was here. I want to address something that hasn't been addressed today, and that's how TAC works, the Transportation Advisory Commission, which is part of the Regional Planning Commission. I've been on that since before I was in the legislature, and I still remain as a member of the TAC, the Southwestern Regional Planning Commission. Without a process in place which was established in 1986, and when the federal government was giving out Department of Transportation dollars, they modeled the distribution of dollars by the program that New Hampshire had set up in 1986, where it's a balanced program. Earlier someone said that in a small town you wouldn't have the opportunity because you don't have the votes in the legislature to get projects completed, and that is true. And that's why the plan that was set up in 1986 for the 10-year highway plan was run through the Regional Planning Commission to give all of the little towns, whether they had 100 people, or 100's a little low, but whether they had 750 people or 70,000 people, they still had a similar representation. So it made the process fair and even, and that's why I think that the Regional Planning Commissions are good, because they give every community an opportunity to be at the table, be heard, and have their plan presented for highway improvements and that sort of thing. For that reason, I'm not speaking for anybody except myself, but my experiences are what I just wanted to relay to you.
Any questions? Thank you very much, sir. Peter, I'm sorry, from Wyndham.
It's Griffin.
Griffin, okay, thank you.
My perfect penmanship, huh?
No, what's that? Yeah, that's right.
My name is Peter Griffin, and I thank you all for this opportunity to come before you. I am thinking about what the earlier testimony put forth was. I'm not going to repeat about the value of the regional planning groups. They're incredibly valuable. And I'm speaking from experience. I have served on regional planning entities for almost 15 years. I was 10 years on Rockingham Planning Commission representing the town of Wyndham. I served 2 years as terms as chairman. I was appointed by the planning board and the Board of Selectmen to represent Wyndham on the RPC. As Ms. Scott said earlier, when we transferred to our affiliation to Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning, I was again appointed by the Selectmen and the Planning Board. The value is incalculable how important this entity is to the town. What I'm hearing is, the thread going through this is the Granite State Futures. It's a program that was adopted by Wyndham Board of Selectmen after 6 hours of testimony over 3 consecutive Boards of Selectmen's meetings. There were a number of people that spoke against it that are here today that had the opportunity to speak at those meetings. We had the regional HUD director also giving testimony. After that lengthy amount of time, the Board of Selectmen chose to adopt or become affiliated with the Granite State Futures. So what we're looking at is just a group of individuals that are disappointed that a certain program has been adopted, so in retaliation we're going to eliminate the entire planning entity in New Hampshire. I hope you consider that. Another thread going through this too was the whole idea of volunteerism. I have volunteered in Wyndham for 40 years in both elected and appointed capacities. I currently serve Wyndham in my 10th term as moderator, which is an elected position. I've served on elected positions of library trustee, appointed positions of Rockingham Planning, various historical boards in town. I really am disappointed that you're being asked today to not only vote on the existence of regional planning, but the value of volunteerism in the community. That communities could not exist without individuals such as myself, or in your case, elected individuals, to keep the towns and the government going. And the fact that we're made out to be lesser individuals, I really find that highly offensive. I thank you today for your opportunity and hope that you vote against this bill. Thank you.
Camille Lockwood from Municipal in opposition. Welcome to our
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members. I'll make this brief because I only found out about this yesterday. And if I had known sooner, I would have written something. However, I would say that one of our fundamentals in New Hampshire is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And about the planning commissions, I say if they're running well, they're efficient, effective, and essential, why derail them? I lived in Chester for a number of years. I was an appointed member of the Planning Board. I was on the Conservation Commission. I was also on the Exeter River Local Advisory Committee, and I'm still a member of that organization. And a lot of other people in opposition have addressed other aspects of the usefulness of planning commissions, so I will stick with rivers. When the Exeter River came up for nomination for protection under RSA 483, which is designated rivers, that was in around 1995. I'd been on the Exeter River Watershed Association for 10 years prior to that, and also on the New Hampshire Rivers Council. The amount of help that we got from the Rockingham Planning Commission and the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission on putting together a plan for this river cannot be overstated. We were dealing with 10 towns, and we all know that 10 towns in New Hampshire all disagree with each other. They're not going to do what the other one's going to do. If so-and-so is doing it, they wouldn't touch it. But a river runs through it, and they run from Chester, 32 miles, to Exeter. Rockingham Planning and Southern Planning made us all work together, and eventually we came to admire each other, recognize each other, and touch base on many other subjects. We couldn't have done it without the commissions. And I know there have been many other rivers which have been helped in their program to get forward by their local planning commissions. There's really nothing like it. Chester was a member of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, a paid member, and I was an appointed planning board member. I'm now in Temple, and we're a member of the Southwest Planning Commission, and I'm an elected member of the planning board. So I've been on connected with a third of the planning commissions, and to say a word I just learned in Temple, I was gobsmacked to discover that anyone wanted to get through this great organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I think that comes from Britain. God's
I spelled
God's
Godsmack. I'll leave that out of the minute.
It isn't, not over here. Mona Perot from Rochester. Welcome. And she's in support.
I am in support of this
Oh,
bill.
I'm sorry. I would have called you sooner when I didn't see the support thing.
And I want to thank you all for hanging in there to hear us today. I'm here as a regular citizen, and property rights are very important to me, and local control. These planning commissions are controlled by federal money, and right now we know that the federal government isn't doing so hot itself. And even beyond that, it's controlled by the UN. I don't want the federal government interfering in my property rights. I don't want the UN interfering in my property rights. I am also here on my own dime. Nobody's paying me. I own a business and I took time off to come here because this is extremely important to me. This is about big government. I'm not going to go into a lot of things, but have you heard of things like vehicle miles traveled? They want to monitor how many miles I travel, and if they don't like it, they're going to make me pay more to do it. And another thing is, how about monitoring well water use? This is in that stuff. I have a well at my house, and you know, I don't think that the well water that I use is a problem, or any concern of theirs. I mean, I'm bringing up, small issues, but they're issues to people like me, the regular people, okay? And I believe that the people who want to give this control to the planning commissions and other federal entities want to give up the sovereignty of New Hampshire. I'm really proud of New Hampshire for being one of the original 13 states, and our Constitution is really strong. And I read it regularly, and I think that the regional planners, if you read their materials or go on their site and dig down in there, you will see direct connections to UN things, okay? The last thing I would like to say is that Mr. Eyring has spent a lot of time studying this issue, which is huge. It's a huge, complicated issue. And I have known him for quite some time to be a very trustworthy, truthful man. I know he's provided you with literature, and it will save you time if you read what he gave you. And I would like to thank Representative Cormier for having the courage to put this forth, because I know with some people it's not popular. But I please really encourage you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Frederick McGarry from Deerfield. Your opposition to the bill. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Frederick McGarry. I'm from the town of Deerfield, and I have been 30 years as a member of the Deerfield Planning Board. I thought I might have the longest tenure as one of the speakers here, but apparently the gentleman from Merrimack will beat me. And during that period of time, I've been both appointed and elected to the Deerfield Planning Board. Also, I've been a representative, one of Deerfield's 2 representatives to the Southern Hampshire Planning Commission for over 20 years. And I will state that during that 20-year period, I have not had anybody attend any meetings where somebody from the UN has come into the Southern Hampshire Planning Commission and making a presentation. Mr. Ahern previously spoke about rules and regulations that were imposed by planning commissions. And in the 30 years that I've been on the Deerfield Planning Board, we have never had a project that required approval by the Southern Hampshire Planning Commission. It's always been a determination by the Deerfield Planning Board Deerfield Planning Board alone. I urge the committee to ITL this bill. One of the aspects which I hope the proponents of the bill did not consider was RSA 147A, which establishes a hazardous waste facility siting board. And the board itself consists of 5 members, 4 of whom are appointed by the governor at large from anyone from the state. The 5th member is a representative from a local regional planning commission. And it would be really unfortunate to have a situation where the governor would appoint all 5 members and have no representation for the community in which a potential hazardous waste facility is to be located. And certainly the planning commissions would provide that opportunity. And I won't belabor the point any further. I just urge the committee to ITL. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
A quick question.
Yeah, question?
What part does the regional planning community play in the commission, play in the federal block grant program?
I think you probably have to ask specifically one of the executive directors. We are involved with. We don't actually vote on the acceptance of any grants or whatever.
Maybe like Clip, because I know both being as a county delegate and a city council, we have people that come in, they do all the work, and they come up with proposals for the federal block grant programs for redevelopmentation or brownfield or whatever, and the planning committee can't do it itself. The regional commission can't do it itself. Whether it's a county or the local government, has to vote to allow them to apply for it.
Yes, that's correct.
And so you can't do it on your own, even though you think it's a great idea to request $500,000 to, for example, change an old rundown gas station in Peterborough for economic development. Unless the selectmen in Peterborough say yes, doesn't matter what your work goes.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Lucy Evans, I believe, has left. She was in opposition. Louis Archibald from Rochester. Welcome, Louis. He has no position.
That's what I'm here to find out. My name is Bill Archibald from Rochester. Regional planning boards are ad hoc agencies. They attempt to usurp land rights, whether you choose to call it Agenda 21, social engineering, or any other form of contemptuous social agendas. This past summer, I was in my yard to UNH. Students employed by the Stratford County Committee approached my property. When I stepped onto my property and determined there was too much vegetation in the ditch and would notify the city to clean it up. This is not about to happen. When he indicated a stone was disrupting the flow of water, which is an overflow from several man-made ponds adjacent to my property, that stone has been there longer than this person has been alive. During the Mother's Day flood of 2006, the entire bridge at the end of the road, on Chester Hill Road, was washed away by a legitimate stream at the other end of the road, like I said, the Isinglass River. That 20-pound stone was there then and was never affected. It never affected the overflow or even moved. He then reiterated that it blocks the flow of water. Yes, he was ordered off my property. I've made full statements to the Rochester City Council, the Stratford County Regional Planning, as well as letters to the editor. I was at a regional planning meeting when I was shown a satellite picture of my property. An employee was asked by a panel if they go on a private property. He said no. Right, not at this time or no longer, semantics. I understand the system. More importantly, at any other regional planning meeting, the employee asked, don't we own the water? This was total silence by the committee members. Other people were there. My assumption is that this was a collective thought process here. They had no intention of answering whether the property belonged to the development Rochester Planning, or Stratford County Planning. This same person stated New Hampshire is one of the few states that the EPA is formally located in. I did not know this. Could it be in New Hampshire that New Hampshire is the last holdout at becoming a totally solid blue state in the entire Northeast? And regulators are a reward for this. What we have here is an established federal agency embedded between layers of New Hampshire government who report to no one. Another citizen asked if the reports the staff spoke on was from his own research. He admitted it's a compilation. They would not answer that question amongst themselves in a private forum. These meetings can be viewed on GovernmentOversite.com, a private group. To the best of my knowledge, these meetings have no public outlet, yet certainly they have access to recording capabilities. This is not a New Hampshire right to know, open, free issue, the way I take it. These grants and funding only go to expand their power and fiefdoms. Citizens, your rights and freedoms are of no concern to them. I didn't serve in the military to give up any of my rights to this totally socialist agenda. Okay, even if I didn't deserve it, even if I didn't serve, I'd be just as outraged. I'm not one of your vassals who's willing to enter any agreement with any lord or master. I'm not a subject. As I told the city planners, stay off my property. I believe in New Hampshire freedom, and regional planning is the antithesis of this. Thank you very much.
You're down as not having a position on this bill.
That's what I was here to find out.
But do you have a position on this bill for the
Yeah.
please?
I'm for her bill,
Okay, thank you.
and I approve everything she says. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Bernie Colter, who says he opposes the bill, but he has a but. He is going to from Claremont. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My hinges are rusting. Bernie Fulton.
So am I.
Ward 3, Claremont. I was a member of the last iteration of the Claremont Master Plan Advisory Committee, and for 7 years I was a Claremont representative to the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission. I'm not in favor of the bill to abolish regional planning commissions, but as you pointed out, there's a huge but, or let me say a significant but. I want to plant a seed. 2 biennia ago, Representative John Cloutier of Claremont sponsored a bill in the House to establish a study committee to study regional planning and regional planning commissions in New Hampshire. That bill was not found expedient to pass. It was found inexpedient to pass. Last biennium, as has been alluded to, there was a bill to abolish regional planning commissions, and that was inexpedient to pass. And now here is the 3rd biennium in a row, and I see a little bit of a pattern. Maybe there's a bit of a message from the lawns and the sidewalks about regional planning and regional planning commissions. From my experience, the regional planning commissions in New Hampshire have been under the radar for quite a while, and some of this activity might be in response to that. And I believe they need to be, that layer of government, because they have been declared to be public bodies in Chapter 36, maybe needs a little bit more scrutiny, or a lot more scrutiny than it has been getting. And I'm talking about citizen scrutiny and oversight, and legislative scrutiny and oversight, because the transparency is poor, I think the accountability is poor. They tend to be, in my experience,
anonymous fiefdoms. And so I wish to plant the seed that maybe this is an area that needs work. And maybe it would be really interesting, and I probably can't do this, to amend, to go and have a top-to-bottom investigation. That's too strong, because I'm not alleging any wrongdoing here. To take a look at regional planning. Now, I see Representative Danielson here. And Representative Daniel, I've been a bird dog for 4 or 5 years with the New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commissions. So I recognize that Representative Danielson has been a delegate from his regional planning committee. And I just want to leave with one last thing. The last few meetings within the past few months of the New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commissions, I have been tweeting, real-time tweeting from the meetings. So I've been giving sort of commentary as the meeting goes. And so and I've encouraged citizens to get more involved in real-time tweeting from public meetings. And if you want to see my reactions to the New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commissions, twitter.com/bernfolt, BERNFOLT, twitter.com/bernfolt, BERNFOLT. Thank you very much.
Is it Bernfolt?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter on Twitter?
Right.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify that does not have a Did you bring forth a card and I missed it?
I did not.
That's right.
My name is Meredith Hatfield. I'm the Director of the Office of Energy and Planning, and I just wanted to tell you that we're here and we are available if you need any assistance, but we don't have a position.
Okay, great. Anybody else interested to speak? Yes?
May I speak? I didn't fill out a card, but
What all I'm going to ask is that you do, when you're done, fill out a card so we have your name for the record.
okay.
Get the card on the table. And keep it to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Members of the board and chairman, thank you for letting me speak. I am from Meredith, New Hampshire, and I go to all the Lakes Region Planning Commission meetings.
Put your name in, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it. Rosemary Landry.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm from Meredith, and I go to the Lakes Region Planning Commissioner meetings all the time, and I video them. And I sit there and I listen, and at the end, the meeting is over, and there's no participation. They don't ask me how I feel about anything, or if I want to interject some proposal that might go through my mind. And I find this rather not for the people. And that's what I want to say, that this is not a people-oriented organization. They have these New Hampshire listening sessions. They go all around the state, and they bring with them planning board members, select board, conservation, their whole team. And then there might be like 5 or 6 people from the audience there who probably don't have anything to do with this. And they are marginalized. They bring their schedule of what issues they want, and there's no data that says, well, the paper that they give out is from, where is it from? Most of it is from UNH Extension, but there's no criteria for saying, well, we got this from this book under this, that, and the other. And I just think that, I don't think the Granite State future is about New Hampshire. It's actually about the regional planning taking over the sovereignty of each town and city and putting it into a regional position. There are a lot of people who would have loved to have been here today but could not come because they are working or taking care of their children. So I agree with Bernie. I do think that this needs to be looked at by the committee, by the legislature, by the Senate, and see what it brings forth. And I honestly I think the people of New Hampshire need a vote on this, on the ballot, as to whether they're going to keep the RPCs or not. As in regards to electing planning board members, in Meredith, we have a select board, and it's very, very cliquey. So they select their friends and anyone else who's inside of their little organization. So that's why I think that the planning board should be elected. I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. When you go to those meetings, you identify yourself as the organization, of what organization you are that you're taking?
I'm not an organization. I'm just a public person interested in what's going on. That's why I take it. And when I go into the meetings and I write my name down, you have to write it down on a piece of paper. And so I'm not addressing the meetings at all. I'm not asked, do you have any questions? Do you want to bring forth any ideas? So I think that it's all entwined with all the representatives of these commissioners. I don't think, there's no public input, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say. There's no public input in this at all. Thank you.
Is anyone else wishing to testify? Anyone else with written testimony that they want us to have? I want to thank all of you for your time and energy. Oh, yes,
Yeah, Madam Chair, I do have written testimony, but much of what I would say has already been said, so I'd like to just submit that, please.
that would be fine. Thank you.
Municipal
Municipal
I'm sorry, I represent the New Hampshire Regional Planning Association.
All you do is.
County rep with you? I don't have a county rep. Cordell is not here.
You know, because
Thanks so much.
I don't know, I'll have to look at the slip. But I know we have a lot of names. Thank you all very much for your time and patience. And I think we have too many to read today, Representative.